pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's important.
Ready?
The Commissioner's
Okay.
office?
That would be me. I'm reporting on financials that I approved on September 28th, Resolution 16-136, as previously authorized by the board. The highlights of the financials that day were appropriation transfer request for the probate court, a appropriation transfer request for water resources to increase the Medicare account, and 3 cash transfers for the juvenile court to reconcile program expenses for the care and custody fund. So those were all approved on September 28th by the
It's up on our side.
And then you get to do today.
And then I get to, because Ann is at a New World training seminar out of state, I will do the financial highlights for this morning. It's resolution number 16-137. Included an appropriation transfer request from the general fund contingency to maintenance for the purchase of a cargo van. A cash transfer from the general fund to transit for the budgeted 2016 funding from the general fund. Encumbrances included a number of travel encumbrances, 1 for the common police court, 2 for community development, 1 for the juvenile court, and 1 for water resources. Highlights on the vouchers included a payment of $104,105 to Ravenwood Health for the fourth quarter funding for youth center operation, and a payment of $18,374.84 to LJB Incorporated for the hearing and survey services for water resources for the Canyon Lakes trunk main.
Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-137, itemizing the financials for the meeting of October 4th, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler? Commissioner
I have a question for you.
Clickwell?
On the one I had before, we were
Yes.
going to approve these minutes from back when he was still absent. We're not doing that?
Due to the chaos from yesterday, Xavier didn't get to proofread them, so we will
Okay.
put them on for next week, so.
All right, I just
They
didn't.
should be caught up before the end of the week.
We'll
if you
get
guys
them
can
caught
do
up
reset.
next week.
No problem, no problem. I just,
Yeah, no, they were on there and with
Ran
Dave
out
doing
of day.
financials and everything yesterday, and we just didn't get to
And a
it,
couple
so.
visitors, it was an interesting.
Hey, I know you.
Mr. Felice?
Morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Submitted a letter dated September 30th for appointment of outside counsel for Board of Mental Health and Recovery Services members as a result of the letter signed by 2 of the commissioners dated April 27th to 2 of the board members. I spoke to Tim Reed yesterday, who I believe the board's using to represent them with respect to mental health board issue matters. And Tim told me that he thought that you were just going to table this so that you would have time to meet with him and discuss it with him. And then you'd take it up at your next meeting, which I think is the 13th. So that sounded like the plan when I talked to Tim. So I've submitted the application, do with it what you want, and then I'll just wait to hear on the 13th. But I'll probably I will send a letter to Tim. If you do table it, I'll send a letter to Tim asking that it be approved to the 13th, or I'll actually want the final read. Okay?
Jim, on that, how does that work? Do both of the parties then approach you to get the representation?
Yes, I was, I spoke to one of the board members, her brother's an attorney, and I think he sent a letter to the commissioners. I spoke to him, and then I spoke to the other board member's sister's an attorney, and I spoke to her. Both of them, through their attorneys, requested that I seek appointment of counsel, and they also asked that I reserve any rights they may have, because I think there was a 5-day limit or something in the letter. Now, I think that maybe Ms. Randazzo might be sending you something separately, and then I know Mr. Cezanne, he is sending you, he filled out the appeal himself,
Correct.
pending, okay,
Yeah,
did
we
you
got
get
it
that?
yesterday.
Okay,
Yesterday.
okay, I got an email from his sister, who's an attorney, so I did receive that, and based upon that, but I think my letter preserves any appeal rights they have. So, you know, my job, when I have a conflict, but I represent people, my job is to preserve any of their rights, be the same for you or anybody else that I represent, and then make my best efforts to obtain them counsel. So it's nothing personal, I just feel like they're entitled to counsel. So I know last time you didn't approve it for the mental health board members. And so if that happens again, which is your prerogative, then there's, you know, different avenues that I'll have to take.
So for clarity, do you represent individuals or the board?
You really want to get into this?
Well, I'm just curious. I mean,
I've made a determination that these individual board members are entitled to legal counsel. You're seeking to remove them for actions that they took in furtherance of their official duties. If, for example, if somebody sought to remove you as county commissioner for wasting all these, you know, monies on outside lawyers, for example, I'm just speaking hypothetically. If somebody filed to remove you as a county commissioner, certainly you would be entitled to representation from my office. And if it was one of my clients seeking to remove you, then you'd be entitled to outside counsel. If you went out and got drunk and ran somebody over in your car and you were indicted for a felony, and somebody sought to remove you as a county commissioner, I would say, nope, sorry, that wasn't in furtherance of your official duties and nothing to do with your duties. So the issue here is with the method of attack against these two members and what the removal is being sought for what they did, I believe they're entitled to counsel. So.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean,
Yeah, the issue of, yeah, we represent boards and we represent public officials. So, you know, it just matters. The issue of whether we're going to represent them or not is not always very clear cut, and it depends on the fact pattern. And there's no specific case that covers a scenario like this. I don't know. I think I didn't find any case where mental health board members have been appealed, you know, have been removed. It's in the Court of Appeals. I don't think it's usually something people bother with. So there's really no case law on it. I looked at the other cases involving other public officials and board members that removal's been sought and whether or not they've been entitled to counsel. And based upon that research, we concluded that they are for this particular instance. So.
okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm assuming you're tabling it? Is that-
Yep.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to table?
I'll move to table
Second.
this action until, what was it, October
Is
13th?
that your next meeting?
Next
Is it
October
Columbus Day?
13th.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And you're seconding it?
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over, Jim.
Thanks, take care.
Good morning, how are you? Good.
Good morning.
Fine.
Is this a president?
No, it's all three of them, so you can just keep the line. The other one is, the next one is normal, has lines.
Do you want me to do 4 and 5 together or just do our now?
Do you want to do the two together?
We're asking for the board to approve and execute the satisfaction mortgage for CNC Precision. They're one company, they're a regular revolving loan fund and our local revolving loan fund. And they had an opportunity to refinance, and in the end, it really helped their financials and lowered their payments and their interest rate and everything. They had some issues when they built the building getting in. They had some delays, so it put them behind a little bit. So this is a really good thing for them. And so they are paying off every bit that they owe us, and just satisfying their.
We did this not that long ago.
Exactly, this
Right.
isn't a very old loan at all.
I mean,
And-
within the last year and a
Yes.
half, something
Yeah.
like that?
Yep, we did the local loan about a year and a half ago, and the regular loan just shortly after that. So, yeah, they just had some issues getting into the new building with fire code and everything, and, they had to redo electrical, put a lot more money into it than what they could handle. Or they can handle it, but they were paying a phenomenal amount of money every day. And not exactly when I say daily, they were making payments. So, with this refinancing and everything, they're going more with the SBA, and it'll save them a ton of money.
Thank you.
The Office of Community and Economic Development is requesting the board approve and execute a satisfaction of mortgage for CNC Holdings LLC as the local revolving loan fund loan in the amount of $75,000 as the conditions of the mortgage have been satisfied. The Office of Community and Economic Development is requesting the board approve and execute a satisfaction of mortgage for CNC Holdings LLC as the revolving loan fund loan in the amount of $410,000 and the conditions of the mortgage have been satisfied.
I'll make those motions.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Chief. Hey, how are you? Dale? Oh, Dale's not coming up, he just moved to the front.
Look at you,
Just wanted to get closer to the front.
It's cold. If you have to wear a jacket, you might as well wear a tie, if you're sweating.
It's not cold yet.
Okay, that's a relative term.
Morning. Number 6, Josh Burton works down at the JFS. He works with Jim down there fairly closely, so we want to get him on the Home Beat in case Jim's not around or anything. At least he can run down to Home Beat and purchase some maintenance stuff and get that going.
The Maintenance Department is requesting the board approve the addition of Josh Burton, Maintenance Assistant at Department of Job and Family Services, to the Home Depot Commercial Credit Account, and further authorize the President of the Board to execute the application for authorization to permit the use of county credit cards form, ORC 301.27, in the amount of $1,000 per month.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
All right. I met your, I think he's a new guy, David, last night. He was here like cleaning, he's the subcontractor.
So Dave, yeah,
Subcontractor. He's doing a good job. Whatever that is. The next one, Universal, went out of business or sold off the business. We had a contract with them for removing grease out of the safety center and the senior center down there, twice a year. So we're gonna go ahead and cancel that contract. We found it best just to cancel the contract and then start a new contract with the Absolute Septic. They kind of took over all the contracts, the grease contracts for Universal.
So I'll be executing that one on Thursday, so they'll pick right up with this one.
Is it for the same cost?
Yes.
I mean, it's just that,
Same as-
basically, it's an extension of our agreement, just with a different.
Correct. We just found it best to cancel, talking to the prosecutor's office, cancel this one and then just start a new contract altogether, so that's what we're gonna do.
The Maintenance Department is requesting the board approve the cancellation of the service contract agreement at the request of Universal Disposal Incorporated for grease removal and maintenance of the Geauga County Safety Center grease trap septic tank to be effective October 6, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye. Number 8, we have 2 systems down there at DES, air handler and another system down there. The controls are approximately 15, 20 years old. 1985, older.
81 years old.
So, buying controls or replacing parts are very hard to find and everything. So we just found it cost effective to go in, replace all the controls on this system. The main unit itself is fairly good shape, so.
And That's being paid for out of the First Energy.
Yeah, Dave and I negotiated a two-year agreement twice where we were getting $9,000 per year, which is paid for 3 capital improvement projects. The first one was filling the cracks in the driveway. The second one was replacing the roof, and this third one is replacing these controls so it's not 50 degrees in there in the wintertime. 90 in the summertime.
Maintenance Department is requesting the board approve and execute a service contract agreement with Geauga on DES Central Plant Controls replacement during the year 2016 in an amount not to exceed $25,150.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
The next one's summer help that we have working with us for the summer. Great guy. This kid, he's really stepped up to the plate and everything. And he's gonna waiting to go back to college, or he's gonna go out to Colorado and get a ski slope. He's not gonna do that till November, December timeframe. So we're just requesting that we take him off of full-time summer help and put him on temporary seasonal.
The Maintenance Department is requesting the board approve reclassifying Kurt Shine from full-time summer help number 0101 to temporary seasonal help number 0101 at the rate of $8.50 per hour to be effective October 1st, 2016 through April 30th, 2017 for up to 13 weeks, a maximum of 520 hours.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Yawn.
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Sun's out, good weather.
Guys looking forward to ice? Snowy conditions?
No challenge, you know, we like that.
Dodging deer.
We do that now.
You
I'm
need
seeing the
oil.
deer out moving around quite a bit now,
Yeah.
so.
About 44, about 7 a.m., you see them walk along the road, and they decide to dart out.
As long as they're not asking for rides.
What's that?
As long as they're not asking for rides.
Yeah. If they pay.
You need oil for the sidewalk.
We'll call you. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm coming up probably close to 100 gallons of oil.
We'll come get it. Perfect. Yeah. Helps save some. Fine.
Okay, we're looking to increase our current part-time driver position from 1 job posting to 2 positions. We very good potential of 1, possibly 2 drivers in the near future retiring and talking about it. So we want to keep the part-time driver position open to fill that.
Let's do it together.
Together. And then we also want to ask to hire Gerald Hawkins in one of those part-time positions. Good candidate, is close by and eager to work, so we can hire Gerald.
The Transit Department is requesting the board increase the current posting for the position of part-time transit driver number 2210-1 from 1 to 2 positions. These positions will remain posted until filled. The Transit Department is requesting the board approve hiring Gerald Hawkins to the position of part-time transit driver number 2210-1 at the rate of $13.57 per hour with a 1-year probationary period, which offer of employment is contingent upon the successful completion of the required pre-employment conditions and will then be effective October 11th, 2016.
I'll make those motions.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Spudler? Commissioner Claypool?
Okay, number 12 is requesting the board approve and authorize our E&D fare assistance from the Ohio Department of Transportation for the period from July 1st of this year, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. And the amount is $55,935, and that's based on the number of, the reimbursement from the state is based on the number of E&D fares that we report to them quarterly.
So the normal fare is $6 one way, and this reduces it to $3?
Correct.
So this is the sum of that difference.
Just by their formula, yeah. If you actually count the rides, the number's not right, but they have their own thing they do, so they can kind of cut.
It's a new math.
I'm not sure if it's new
Common
that
core,
or
2 and 2 equal
something else.
3?
That, you know, I just say, okay, thank you.
No, sometimes you stand up. Mike has acquired a reputation at the state for asking kind of hard-nosed business questions. And when Mike shows up, they're like, oh boy, we're in for it again.
And it's such a rarity in
Yes, it is.
government, when people stand up and actually make sense.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I probably stand up too often. As my wife would say, sit down again.
The Transit Department is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the Ohio Department of Transportation ODOT Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program grant contract between the Geauga County Board of Commissioners and the State of Ohio Department of Transportation contract EHTA 0101017171 for the period July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017 in the amount of $55,935.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye. And I want to thank the Department of Transit. Sometimes they get a bad rap for not being very flexible, adaptable, whatever the case was. They provided transportation to 3 disabled vets to Santa Claus's event last Saturday, which apparently was a success. And so we're really blessed in this county to have people like Santa Claus who are helping the vets and children who are, going through life's challenges and all that kind of stuff. And the ability to be able to have the transit department who can step up.
I understand the commissioner contributed some of his own money to help make that happen as well.
So I appreciate the transit being willing and flexible and adaptable enough to be able to help out.
We can, we're trying to do it. We can.
All these people that badmouth you.
Used to it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. And gal.
Okay, the next one, Jerry could not be here. Adrian's hoping to make it, but apparently he wasn't able to make it as well. This is simply a reimbursement form related to the Thompson Township Sewer Project. So it's certification number 5 on that project from PWC, the state portion.
And this is the final. The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the Ohio Public Works Commission Appendix E disbursement request form and certification number 5 final in order to release funds from the state portion for the Thompson Tower Sewer Project in the amount of $19,000.81.
3 cents?
Yeah. So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
I'm surprised you didn't round it up. Yeah, or down, we're getting the money, right?
We're getting the
We're
money.
getting-
Oh, then they would have rounded it down.
So you were invited to this Eagles County Court of Honor on October 16, 2016 in Munson Town Hall. Let me know if any of you are able to attend, but this is a resolution for Eric Jones from Munson Troop 91.
What time is that?
One more page,
That's all right, a little later.
1 o'clock. Ceremony begins at 1:30.
I'll get my calendar if it works then.
Okay. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-138 honoring Eric D. Jones for achieving Eagle Scout the highest award of advancement bestowed upon a Boy Scout. This project consisted of completing a footbridge and walkway at the camp Old Mine Dakota at Danbury.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool? All right. Dave's gonna look perplexed because he hasn't been involved in this process. This resolution designates 7 banks that have applied for the application for a public depository with the Treasurer's Office for the aggregate amount of $75 million for the next 4 years. The banks chosen through that process were Huntington National Bank, First National Bank, Middlefield Banking Company, Home Savings and Loan, PNC Bank, NA, Fifth Third Bank, and JP Morgan Chase. The The agreements were revised by the prosecutor's office and sent back for revisions, and once those come back from the banks, then those will also be presented to you for the final agreements that coincide with this resolution.
Good job.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution number 16-139 designating Geauga County's public depositories of active monies for the next succeeding 4-year period pursuant to ORC 135.33.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool? And the next action is, I'm actually gonna take vacation time.
Is that okay? Are we approved vacation time for Christmas?
Unfortunately, I do not have a babysitter next week, so therefore I don't have a choice,
Not
so.
sure. Is that in the policy manual we're allowing people to take vacation?
Actually, it is.
So what this is doing is, this will allow Debbie to be, acting clerk when I'm not here. And then Dave would be the backup to the acting clerk for, if Debbie is for some reason not here.
From the backup to the backup.
That's right.
It's gotta make you feel good that you got two people that have to back you up.
This is the same action that we took when I was on leave, at the beginning of the year. Unfortunately, in the past, we have only designated to do it specifically for a meeting at times. But due to the nature of, the amount of extra financials that seem to be taking place, and with it being a payroll week, we felt it necessary just to do it for the remainder of the year on just a in-case basis.
Because I'm authorized to sign off on financials, but the process also includes the clerk, kind of that countersigning as well. So we have to have someone available for that purpose too.
So the Commissioner's Office is requesting the board appoint Deborah Ashburn to act as acting Commissioner's Clerk in the event that Christine Blair, Commissioner's Clerk, is unable or unavailable to perform those duties at any time during the remainder of the year 2016. And further appoint David Lair, County Administrator pursuant to ORC 305.30, to act as acting Commissioner's Clerk in the event that Deborah Ashburn is unable or unavailable to perform those duties at any time during the remainder of the year 2016.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
I'd like to just bring up also, want to discuss and hopefully put forward on the table for a motion and the qualification criteria for the architect for, do you want to kind of give a little bit of a rundown of that?
Yeah, ever since I've been here, the commissioners, various boards I've served have discussed the idea of doing some review of county office space, current and proposed office space. We have a number of departments who have grown and changed over the years. We have a number of departments who could possibly serve the citizens better from a more central location. We have a number of buildings, where actually probably a majority of our buildings are not really designed with a high degree of energy efficiency. So there's a lot of energy costs, there's a lot of maintenance costs. So in order to look at something like that, the smart thing to do from a business standpoint is to partner with a firm who has expertise in looking at facilities for government, looking at possible plans and changes. So under the Ohio Revised Code, there's a couple ways you can do this, and one of the ways is you can request that firms provide qualifications for what's called a criteria architect, and that's someone who could conceivably down the line be a design-build firm that could actually design the facilities, if any are going to be built, build them, actually even perhaps own them and run them. Similar things have been done in other counties, Geauga, for example. But what we're also looking for at the same time is kind of a basic financial case as to whether this even makes makes sense. So the document that we've created asks for people who have experience in being a criteria architect to submit their qualifications, but we're also asking specifically for them to explain their expertise in doing a financial case justification for that kind of facility. So the document that I have prepared for the board to consider adopting would be to issue a request for statements of qualifications to do a study of county buildings.
So let me weigh in on this, and Dave, you and I have talked about this. I've talked to Laura LaChapelle, I've read the Ohio Revised Code, I've talked to 2 developers regarding the qualifications for somebody to do a feasibility study, which is what we're looking at doing. I've done a case, feasibility study, and taken into account square footage, build costs based on input from various builders and companies that do this sort of thing and understand how this is approached, both from a build, lease back perspective. By the way, the case model to create a campus environment looks very positive. And so I'm in full support of moving forward to approve a company to come in and do a feasibility study to create the case. The criteria architect is not that company. I've talked to various companies and they've been very clear. There is a definition for a criteria architect. It is not a company that does a feasibility study. The criteria architect is a company that determines the criteria around which you create a structure. So if you were going to build, you knew that you were going to build a county offices, they would create the criteria that says so many offices, so much electrical, so much plumbing, so much whatever. That's what the criteria architect does. It is a planning developer that is, I think, the company that we're seeking to be able to do a feasibility study. We need somebody to create a case. This is going to be an emotional event. There's a lot of moving parts involved, from utility cost, which, based on the case that I've done, we would see a significant improvement in utility costs just because our buildings are old and the maintenance on them and so on and so forth is, costly and all that kind of stuff. I've confirmed with Laura that that is a very doable thing to do in terms of putting together a letter. In fact, I sent you a letter, which I would suggest as an alternative, that we would draft and ask people for qualifications as a planning developer. Some of those planning developers have criteria architects involved with them. They have them on the staff. They have that specific criteria architect is a specific skill geared toward a specific event in the build process. And I don't think we've gotten there yet. My only fear, and the reason that I'm offering this up, is that we hire the right kind of company. Because we need somebody who can really help us to play out the case so that when we're done, we can go to the public and we can go to all the elected officials, we can go to all the departments and provide a very good case for making a change so it limits the pushback and all the emotion and so on and so forth. So I'd like to suggest the alternative to a criteria architect, and that is a planner developer, which is well within our allowable limits. And again, I have confirmed this with Laura and I've confirmed this with a number of people. So that's my concern is that we hire the right guy.
Let me read what we're in, is part of this request, just so we're all on the same page. And this was all reviewed. This is a document that was drafted by Laura. I made some changes to it to kind of speak to your concerns. So this is what's in there. Specifically, the board is seeking qualifications from firms or individuals to perform the following services. And the largest paragraph is exactly what you're talking about. Provide review and analysis of current county facilities located at the 3 primary Geauga County campus locations, namely Chardon Square and 470 Center Street in the city of Chardon, and the 24-hour service center facilities located along Ravenwood Drive and Merritt Road in Clarendon Township, to determine an estimated return on investment should the county undertake a project to construct new facilities to replace some current facilities. And again, it's my feeling, if you put it out there like this, they're going to see that the process might even end at that point if the case isn't there. But going on, investigate all options for using the design-build process in the construction facilities to serve the current and future needs of various county offices. Prepare conceptual plans or specifications. Act as the owner's agent for project management through the remainder of the design-build process. And finally, we're asking that there be specific experience with performing facility analysis and the design-build process in this capacity should be noted in the statement of qualifications. So I think there should be unanimous agreement that we have to do a thorough study before we expend any kind of resources on moving it forward like we're gonna build something.
Well, and that's my biggest concern, is that we don't get the horse before the cart here. We need to have a solid case. We've attempted this before. We're not the first Board of Commissioners to have said, hey, we're gonna create a consolidated office.
We've done this before.
And they've failed dramatically. Why have they failed dramatically? Because they didn't have a good case. Now, again, I have numbers. I'm willing, well, in fact, I will be sharing those numbers here shortly. But I'm very positive about the case, given the amount of investment we make annually in all these various projects that we do. You know, revamping the basement of the court building, revamping the space over here for the veterans, doing this, doing that. We spend a ton of money revamping old buildings. And if we think about what we can put that money into, we have money in the pipeline, we just are spending it in different ways. And so I'm very confident that we're gonna have a positive study here. But we need to have somebody who is very good at looking at all the various factors that we need to look at, you know, from staffing to, you know, utilities, to the maintenance, to so on and so forth, and has the experience to be able to do that, to create that case. Once we have the case, the developer, the designers, all that kind of stuff, if they've got those in-house, that's fine. We need somebody who's really experienced at creating that case, because that's our biggest nut right now, in the beginning, is just creating the case. Again, I'm fully on board. I think right now we're talking nuance rather than, you know, whether we should do this or not.
I mean, I think you're advocating kind of a two-step process, and what I was attempting to do in inserting the, you know, what I think the wishes are of the board members is to come up with a one-step process that starts out with exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and I don't think, I mean, steps, I don't know about the whole step thing. I do feel though, and let me get this out on the table, you know, we have some immediate issues that are facing us. And, you know, I don't want to sit and linger on this. We've got a particular situation with Jobs and Family Services. We need to probably just weigh that in to say, does it make sense? And based on the stuff, the material that I put together so far, one campus seems to make the most sense. If you start having disparate offices, you've created another situation. You can't get leverage, you can't get economies of scale. You know, there's a lot of downside to that. One campus arrangement, and you could start with one organization. So I'd love to have a firm come in to create the case to be able to confirm the right sequence of events and so on and so forth. So I'm all good with that. Again, my biggest concern is we have the right company to do this, because we'll fail again if we don't. So that's it.
Well, hopefully, if the board agrees to put this out, we're gonna get a number of responses, and then that's.
What's the, I mean, we put this out, we're gonna advertise for firms to,
We're gonna ask them to submit their qualifications.
so
That's
the cost of this is gonna be
The advertising.
the advertising,
Right.
the ad, which is, depending on where you're at, it's pretty negligible
Right.
for what will be the bottom line of a project of this scope.
Oh, absolutely.
And magnitude. I mean, it'll be like that 3 cents that we
Yeah,
approved
relative to
here.
the other number, yeah.
Are you gonna make the motion, or are you prepared to make?
Yeah, I think that this covers exactly what, you know, what Skip has brought up. I actually was the one that pretty much spearheaded this originally, and I just feel that I talked to four different organizations that feel exactly that, you know, what they can bring to the table is exactly that. And I think that we can beat this horse to death here, and you know, we need to get stuff done. And I think that we've got some time-sensitive issues, and I think that what we've got spelled out here covers it. I think that what we would be looking at, and no disrespect, doing it your way, is we're gonna basically pay once, and then we're gonna pay again, because it's gonna be difficult to try to, you know, what has happened is unfortunately in government, it's not like that, but in the private industry that serves a lot of these government entities, it's an umbrella that has all services included in one. And I think that we need to find that, and to sit here to say that we're gonna put this out for another firm to do this, and then when the other firm is gonna do this, and I think that we need to just put this to rest and put this out there. Everything, all those details are included in what we're looking for. Then, we took a lot of time to try to cover all those bases that I just feel that a two-step process is only gonna put us behind that much longer, and this is going to do what we need to do, and the firms that are gonna approach this are probably the same firms that would be approaching us on the first time around. So I guess I would ask to put it out on the table for, if I would get a motion to approve that.
You're making motion.
I have language.
Okay.
I'm not sure what we were approving yet, so what are we approving exactly?
Do you have something to read?
She does.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board grant permission to advertise to request statements of qualifications for Criteria Architect Services. These statements of qualifications will be received no later than Wednesday, November 3rd, 2016 at 1:45 p.m. Notice of this request will be advertised on October 6, 2016 and on the county website.
See, and I object to
What
that,
November?
because it's not the concept, it's the going after criteria architect. We will hire their own company if it's a criteria architect.
What was the date on the, in there?
November 9th.
That, they have to be in by November, their proposals have to be in.
They
to
have
us.
to be here, it's sealed, with, it's specific in this, legal notice that they have to submit, in triplicate, an original 2 copies and 1 electronic copy, sealed in an envelope marked Criteria Architect, County Office Facility.
And then we will,
And then once they're received by 1:45 on that date, then they will be open, acknowledged, and then reviewed.
Let me suggest this.
because he dropped his pen, I couldn't hear it.
Sorry about that.
Let me suggest this before we vote on this. Find a definition for criteria architect in the development world. Because that tells us who we're hiring. I've already done that. You have an email that defines what a criteria architect is. It is not a company that does a feasibility study. And we're gonna hire for somebody who is not up to doing the task, and we'll get a bad result, and this won't work. I want this to work. And a criteria architect is not the company. They're the ones that come in and tell you how many doors you need, how many light switches you need, yada, yada, yada. That's a criteria architect, coming from the developers of that document.
I
So belong,
think you've talked to a number of good people. I think Commissioner Scaleri has talked to a number of good people. And I've been part in some of those discussions. And the feeling I've gotten is these are the kind of people that are gonna respond to this. And that if they have the expertise to do this initial step up front. But I don't know. Until you put it out there, until you take the first step, you don't really know who's gonna respond. And obviously, the board may look at all the people responding and say, these folks are not prepared to provide what we're looking for. That's a possibility. That's the risk. That and spending some money on an ad.
On
that's
the ad,
risk.
I mean, if it comes back and what their scope of work proposal is doesn't make a lot of sense for some reason, or there's questions, we're not obligated
No, not at all.
to, so, this, I view public officials have a couple of jobs, and in this case, it's two. One is to try to solve this problem, but not to be overlooked is the perception, if you will, or the fact that when you do something like this, you're gonna be criticized, and it's by someone. Someone's gonna be unhappy.
No matter what you do or
Yeah,
don't
right.
do, you're gonna be criticized.
And so you can't go wrong if you ask for more opinions, or, it's like, because there's gonna be somebody out there that's gonna say, well, John Doe, he recommended this architect or this firm because his brother-in-law works for it, or what have you. And so, whether that's true, imagined, it doesn't matter. It'll be out there. So I believe that the more open the concept is, then the result will, it may take a little longer, but then nobody's gonna say, well, if you'd have done it the other way. Right. So if you're making the motion that she read, are you? Then I'll second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Spudler? Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
The only thing that I have is that I received an email from Portage County that I forward to all of you. The Joint Detention Center Superintendent is requesting the Joint Board of Commissioners attend a Joint Board of Trustees meeting to discuss the possibility of contracting for bed space. So that will be coming forward to be looking at scheduling with
And
you.
I read through that, that packet, and my position on that is, and I think that that's something that, you know, we can talk further about it at the meeting, is, you know, if all these other facilities are at 50% fill rate, that they're not in an overflow situation, and it's costing us, you know, combined over, you know, it's costing us millions of dollars. Then the other option to look at realistically is it would probably be a whole lot cheaper for us to then contract with those facilities that have room and take the cost away from what we're doing. Because the infrastructure of what we're paying for us having a facility that has to have minimum standards to be housed with minimum personnel, utilities, on and on and on. And we're at a fill rate of, say, 30 to 50% on average. And all these other facilities don't need our services of having their overflow come to us, that we've tried to look at as similar to the jail situation, where we contract with these other, you know, cities to be able to house prisoners, and then we charge them X number of dollars, and it's an income for us. Then maybe we need to look at the possibility of looking at what facilities then are at these 30 to 50% continuous fill rates, and we take our people there, and we pay a per day basis that's going to be a whole lot cheaper than what we're doing to operate a whole facility.
We're paying for our portion, we're paying an awful
Correct.
lot of money every year.
Correct.
It's asset utilization, that's what
And
we're talking about.
so, I just, you know, I think that, you know, if we're really looking at fiscal conservativeness and doing the responsible thing for taxpayers' dollars, then I think that that would only make sense. Because if they're not filled, and they're at 50%, and we're not filled because we're at 50% or lower, then I think operating something at 100% is a whole lot more efficient than operating two things at 30 to 50%.
We don't have factored in, we don't have factored into this equation what the cost would be of transporting juveniles if we were
Well,
moving them around.
Right now, and I'm not sure exactly
Yeah, I'm not
who it
either.
is
I'm
that
just
they,
pointing it out.
you know, communicated with, but I can tell you, we're going outside of the county right now to Portage County to go to deliver our juveniles right now. And that joint facility is, on Infirmary Road, is both Geauga and Portage. So we are combining those two, and we've got, you know, quite a bit of transport time. I personally delivered, when I was on the sheriff's department, juveniles back and forth to that unit that were under arrest or going to court or whatever. So as far as, you know, if we're in the surrounding area, we're already leaving the county now to go and do this.
True. I might mention too, the judge has made a request to this, Judge Glendel's made a request to this office about housing juveniles at Richland County, because there's gonna be cases where, say, there's siblings involved, and they don't really want the siblings in the same facility. So, he would like to, and I think Laura is looking at that agreement with Richland County. It comes back to more, but kind of your point, Richland County is a facility that, if you folks agree to do that, might be a place where you're gonna have a new relationship anyway to ship.
Right. And I do, I think it's, you know, And, you know, it was, from our last meeting when we discussed it, you know, on an average day, you know, there was between 13 and 15 kids in this facility, you know, in this detention facility, and you look at how much cost does it break down per day, per individual that's in there, to operate something 24 hours a day. It's, you know, I get it, we need to have a facility to be able to do this, but if it's not cost effective and there's a possibility of doing it somewhere else.
I think our budget for 17 is like $800,000 or something.
Right.
Our portion of that. So you
Right.
take the number of juveniles we send down there and you divide that up, it's pretty expensive, as you're saying.
Right, and I can't recall the exact number that day of the 13 that they were holding, that were Geauga's people, but I wanna say it was between 3 and 5 total, out of what the total population was at the day that they were here. Portage has a larger number of individuals in that facility, not Geauga. But, so we pay prorated for, you know, the Portage pays more of the bill because they have more of the need for the service. But with that being said, take $800,000 and divide that by 365 days, and you get a big number, you know? You get a big number. And I think that, you know, we're at a point in time where we've got the scenario going on right now with Jobs and Family Services of look at the money we're paying for, you know, placement of this and placement of that. This is actually increasing even more so than that, right? You know?
And that's an issue the board needs to look at long-term about how we're gonna make that more cost-effective. That's a separate issue.
My take on all this is, what Ralph says is clearly makes sense, but Ralph, nor Skip, nor I, nor the other three down there are in total control of the issue. There's laws, legislation that take place on how you handle the youth and so on and so forth that I certainly am not familiar with. So, well, we can all have our own idea how this is gonna work. There are rules and so on in place by the General Assembly that we have to play by. And
in the courts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, with the court and the fact that they're not, they are kids and we're required to educate them while they're there, and all the other things that, the list of requirements is huge.
Right,
And I don't think any of us are experts on that, so I
and-
think the concept of what he's
Right.
talking about is great, but it's like,
Right, I wouldn't, I'm not here speaking on eliminating what we're required by law to do, because one juvenile detention facility has to follow the same rules that another it's state standards that are put into place. And ultimately, from when we discussed this a couple years back, is the requirement of the county commissioners is to afford a facility. Not specifically one facility over another, but to afford a facility for these, that we have to cover that cost. But, so we have to look at that and we have to say, okay, we're getting this for this amount of money, we could get this for the same amount, for a different amount of money and saving 80%, and we're getting the same deal here or here. And you know, I mean, and I think that that's the hardest thing is this, to try to justify that kind of dollars for that limited amount of occupancy is crazy. It's crazy. And I get it, but it's crazy.
I wonder, what contractual obligations do we have with Portage? I mean, this happened a long time before
Yeah,
we were
in the
on the
agreement-
facility. You know, who is it paid for? Do we owe a portion? Do they owe a portion? How's that?
Well-
What about the employees that lose their job?
Those are Portage employees, but I mean, you know, and I'm not an expert on the agreements that were all done way before any of us are here. But there is language in the documents I've seen that speaks to kind of like what is the equity stake of each county, and so it kind of lays down the potential that at some point one county or the other county might want to pull out of that entity and do something differently.
From my perspective, there's a lot more I don't know about how that operation works than I do know about how it works, and maybe that's why they want to have a trustees meeting and talk about that in that request that.
And they want to hold, they're looking at actually holding it at the detention center, so I think that you can see the facility then and that kind of stuff. We're just trying to figure out the parameters of how that can happen.
You know, all of this said, and I agree with everything that was said here, but I think change needs to happen in the system, generally speaking, for all the reasons that we've talked about. A couple of elements that we're gonna get some pushback on, we just need to register, is the kids that we send to Portage and the kids that go from Portage are a particular type of criminal behavior. We start mixing and matching those with people coming out of Cleveland, we've now changed the nature of the kids that are in there. And so I don't know how that, I don't have experience with that, so I don't know how that all weighs. And I know the judges have told me, be careful about who you mix with who. But the other side of that is, maybe Portage is the best facility, and we gotta be shutting down another one and filling up our facility. So there's ways to shake the, to redeal the deck a little bit that ought to be considered probably. And maybe shutting down our facility is the right answer, maybe combining it with another facility. I do agree with Ralph in that some of this stuff just gets ridiculous. I mean, we spend, X amount of dollars to support a 30% fill rate. And it's not all about money, we're dealing with kids here. But you have to be practical and sensible at some point in time and start doing some reasonable things for the taxpayers. And
But I get it, and I think that there's a certain validity to what you're saying as far as mixing prisoners or mixing juvenile delinquents, as they call them in the juvenile business. But so if you've got somebody in the detention facility and you don't want to intermingle them with juvenile delinquents from Cleveland, well, the same argument could be made here. Is we've got local Geauga County inmates that now we're basically having high-level federal prisoners with high-level federal crimes of whatever it is that are right here in our safety center. So, so what you're saying is what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. I just
yeah, I'm not saying that I have the answer to that, because I don't know.
So
But
if we're
I know
gonna
that there
carry
are people
that,
who
then
think that.
basically, then what we're looking at what we would basically do is put that same, push out there to say, okay, if you look at our population, what is our Geauga County population in our jail? And I don't know that. And what's our percentage of the population of visiting inmates? I don't know what that is. But it would be interesting to see that, and if you're basically saying that that's what it is, then why are we doing it on the adult end?
Because there's a definition, I don't.
You know what I mean?
But why do we have a juvenile detention center? Why don't we just throw them into the regular
Well, no, that's
jail?
regulated.
I mean,
That's regulated
that's what I'm
juvenile
saying,
and
so,
adult.
Well,
so there's I'm
Right, I'm just saying.
design difference between under 18 and over 18.
And I've asked the
that-
sheriff that question.
I don't know
and
what
his,
that-
and his answer, not my answer. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, and I will lean on the experts. And Ralph is far more than an expert than me because he was in law enforcement. But the sheriff has said they build filters into. They don't have to accept all prisoners. They are very careful about who they accept into the sheriff, into the jail. Plus, they're petitioned differently than juvenile detention.
They also have different
And so-
programs.
and so I
They,
don't-
they don't have.
I'm not an expert there. I mean, I'm in full
But they
support
have
of what.
they have different programs on the juvenile side of things too, where they do have that. But I'm just saying is that if we get down to that point, then let's home arrest everybody, and I don't know what the answer is, and I just want to bring that out in
Yeah,
discussion
this is
for
a
you
good
guys to
discussion
think
to
about
have.
for this meeting, that we don't go in there with our heads buried in the sand saying.
No, it's a good discussion to have, but the
keep
decision
doing
we
what
have to
we've
make
done
is,
it,
right?
can we find a time
Right.
that's agreeable with
I mean,
their
what about
time
Tuesday
frame?
afternoon? If we-
Well, right now, we're gonna have to look at after budget hearings are over.
Yeah, well, October's kind of filled up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Filled
So I was gonna say,
late in the.
we're done at noon on Tuesday, we could head over there even at 1:00 if you wanted to do something
On
like
the
that.
11th, it'll depend on when
Yeah,
the
they-
board of trustees.
Because I think we need to get ahead of this, because it's a critical issue that we're spending a lot of money for that we need to get our hands around this, because it's a huge issue, you know, it's a
Well,
lot of
looking
money.
at this week,
Well, we're
So-
looking at maybe Tuesday the 11th in the afternoon, because you're.
yeah, if that is agreeable. If that's not agreeable, then the following week we have
You have
one
session
on
on-
Thursday.
Right, well, you also have session on Tuesday morning, so you could do it following that, like mid-morning or that afternoon as well.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of like planning a wedding. Some
So-
people
I
are
know,
gonna,
we have-
some people
we
are
have-
gonna be busy that
so I
day.
just
Yeah.
wanted to make
Board of
that,
bigger
Commissioners,
present,
put it
our
out there.
commissioners, and the Board of Trustees, and we're trying to.
Yeah, we're
coordinate,
trying to get
so-
about 5 different groups together on a common date. What did they say?
But I
the
just
other
wanted to
day?
put that out there so you guys could think about it, because
Yeah, I don't think they get any
I think that,
pushback on it.
you know, if you read through, you know, all the specifics of, you know, recommendations and what their calls have found and blah, 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 it's a situation where it seems like we're not the only one that has the same issue.
Right.
It's all these other counties that are running way over budget because they're holding these facilities open to meet the minimum standards that is required by law, and they don't have capacity that's even close to filling it, and we're all spending money. And I think working together to save tax dollars is a smart thing.
So, Rob, let me ask you this, because you're more in tune to the law enforcement side of things than I am. Is some of this due to the fact that the new programs, the kids are directed to the juvenile detention center? They are given more homebound, put an ankle bracelet on, kind of programs. Is it because they changed the?
I think that there's, you know, I mean,
courts?
you know, I think that there's, you know, the position of the courts, I think, is more rehabilitation, you know, and the answer isn't always you take this kid out of his family environment and school environment and you throw him into a lockup, because I don't think that that's the message that any of the judges really want to send. But there's cases that finally come up where, you know, so many times, you know, an individual does things, or certain levels of crime mandate that the judge has to take a position on that requires him to have jail involved. But I think, you know, we're seeing it into the, you know, if you listen to, like, you know, Judge Burt, Judge Fury, with the whole adult system right now, you know, where their hands are tied as judges, that because they have to give, you know, leniency of sentencing to reduce the level of incarceration, and it's all money. you
Well,
know.
here's the
It's,
ironic thing is, one of the things that this board has, you know, looked at in this last year, because our JFS executive director has brought to our attention, he's spending $2 million a year on sending kids to facilities, because our youth center can only hold like 18 tops. These are kids that haven't broken a law, but the court has ordered them out of the house. So we're sending them all over the state. We're paying high per diem, sometimes excess of $400 a day. We did the analysis, or he did the analysis. I kind of suggested that, you know, you might be thinking about the time it takes a caseworker to drive back and forth to check on them. And sure enough, it turns out we're paying for the equivalent of 2 full-time employees just to operate a motor vehicle,
Yeah.
going back and forth to where the clients are. So you look at a facility like Portage Geauga and say, could you change the configuration on that to allow it to kind of flex and maybe accommodate?
Right.
And I've never been there to really look
The
at to see
answer
if
I
that's
got
possible.
was you can't mix the population.
Well, you
Well,
physically have to.
If you empty that
Right. You
facility
You physically have
out,
to change out some of the ways.
yeah,
some
you
go.
physically empty that.
But that might be another way to utilize that asset.
The downside of that, from what I was told, not from personal experience, but from what I was told, is that you take a child who's in one of these situations, really through no fault of their own, and essentially throw them into a facility that replicates a jail. May not have the best.
Oh, right.
You know,
No, I'm thinking
I mean,
in terms
well,
of
let's go
because-
walk in the side yard. Well, it's
Is
covered
there-
with razor wire.
Is there any way you can reconfigure some of that
It's,
to provide some space?
that's a good question. It's just, that's one of those, the thing that faces this county, in my opinion, before our facilities, before the juvenile detention center, before these other issues that we may save some amount of money on, but we really can't quantify or qualify, well, we can't say, how much money are we gonna save? Because the dynamic changes. We know. We've got, Craig has data. Youth housing, to me, is the number one issue facing Geauga County when you consider that, like we say, we have counselors traveling around the state to these facilities, and they're spending about 4,000 hours a year, if I remember my numbers right.
2 people.
Well, no, it's one I thought it was,
Well, 2,080.
2,000,
2,080 hours a year is
Yeah.
one person, so they're spending, it's almost like we're paying 2 people just to be driving cars.
driving a car back and forth. And when they get there, to wherever there is, to interview or to console or whatever they do, that patient, if that patient can't be there, if there's a reason, they're ill or this or that, whatever it is, we just wasted. That person can drive all the way back because there's nobody there to see. And how you control that outside of having a more local, regional facilities that are staffed.
Oh, it only makes sense.
That's our number
what I'm
one
looking
issue.
at is we're spending almost $1 million, and it's gonna go over $1 million. Just how everything else costs, it's gonna go over $1 million. On 3 to 5 kids a day, max, say 5 kids is what the information that he told me that day. And what could we do with that $1 million
Towards solving this
towards
other problem.
solving the other problem?
Right.
You know, so it's, and where is more of the demand? More of the demand, if you look at it based on just statistical numbers alone, 3 to 5 compared to Craig has maybe 200, I think that the numbers speak for itself.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, I think that we just gotta really look at this, and we gotta say,
you're right.
we're throwing good money at something that we could be throwing money at something that's going to serve a whole lot more. You know, and the other thing too is like what Craig says, you know, you take these kids that, you know, and to answer your question, I think part of the situation too is, you know, the reason that there's not as many going to the detention facilities is as they get put into the care authority of Jobs and Family Services, you know, in lieu of the correctional, the juvenile facility, you know, detention facility. So he's handling a lot of those, kind of like he's the first step, and then the second step, if that doesn't work, they go to this. So we have to look at this and say, you know, how many more people can we serve? And the biggest thing too is like what Blake said is, it's true, they're going all over. I mean, Craig Swenson told us they even had to go into Cincinnati. So, you know, that's not safe, or that's not, I shouldn't say safe, it's not recommended under what's the recommended practice of having those kids closer to their families. So you know, so as far as like, you know, basically Jobs and Family Services is an organization I think that basically is like, you know, try to bring everybody now together after everything, you know, unscrambles, and you're working with mom, and you're working with dad, and you're working with the kids and all this other stuff. Well, how does that work when you got your kid in a house in Cincinnati and you've got mom and dad here in Chardon? It doesn't work too easy, you know, and you can't facilitate stuff. So if we're really
Well,
looking,
then the kid is supposed to be going to school.
Right.
He's lost his whole support
Right.
system because
You
he's
know?
down in Cincinnati.
Craig's got one of the toughest jobs.
He does.
In the
Absolutely.
county. Not only does he have a messed up Jobs and Family Services organization statewide, I mean, this is messed up.
he does.
And he's got to deal with that, and then he's got to deal with all these broken families and all the trauma and, you know, juggling things between the court. I mean, he's got a tough job.
It is, and we're
It's
only
tough
seeing the whole family, I mean, families are continuously deteriorating more and more based on statistics, and well, just what we see in our lives. And, you know, and it just, there's, I think that there's, you know, hard focus that needs to be put into perspective. And, you know, it comes down to this, is I didn't get in this because I wanted to make easy decisions or hard decisions. It comes down to making the right decision. And the right decision we have to really talk about is, are we spending money in the right way with this juvenile facility? Or is it just another cost that we're just basically paying today because we paid it yesterday, and we'll pay it tomorrow because we paid it today? That's not progressive thinking, and it's not, you know, making, you know, to be able to.
Trigger words. I know, that was a bad word, boy. Ralph even got me a little worked up
Word of
over
the
that.
day, progressive.
I use
Well, we're not
progressive because
solving
we're looking for
anything.
progress.
I mean, the conversation is great, but our number one issue at this time is coming up with dates to give Christie so she can contact whoever the other girl is. I can't remember her name.
Well, Deb is out, so it'll be Amy.
Okay, well, yeah, down there so that they can get dates.
Coordinate with the board of trustees.
And who is on the board of trustees, I don't know. I mean,
I have to look and see.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think their judges are on there or
Judge,
something.
I think Tim Taylor was on there, I'm not sure if he still is.
Well, I mean, you know, it's more than the 6
Yeah,
commissioners. It's a bigger number, and from my perspective, hopefully some of those people are experts in their field. So otherwise, we're going to be.
Well, I just wanted you guys to start to think about this stuff and take the time to just read through that material, because it'll give you kind of an eye opener too. And, you know, I don't want to just, you know, bring it up that day, because I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, I've already read through it. I mean, I understand exactly what, in fact, this is the last board meeting that we had here. We were looking at those statistics, and we asked those questions. You know, what's going on here? What's the cost for
I do
juvenile
remember
and so forth, so.
when we had that meeting here, that there was some questions, commentary by the group. That, I think it was very shortly after that, we received correspondence from one of the judges telling us, scolding us, if you will, or certainly criticizing.
cautioning
Yeah, cautioning. So I'm trying to look for the you know,
about mixing populations.
yeah, beware.
Yeah.
And I suspect that that's not going to, that is not going to go away. When we have another discussion, there'll be people in with their position, and then, you know, if it's the guy sweeping the street, I'll listen to him. If it's the guy that has the credentials, I'll probably listen a lot harder. You know, especially if they deal with this every day, because I don't know what I'm, you know, it's like the youth housing. Hey, they're taken away because mom and dad are a problem. Grandma and grandpa would be a loving influence, but maybe they can't physically or financially accept that challenge. It'd be nice if grandma and grandpa could visit on the weekends or go see their grandchild. You know, that's why bringing them back to a closer to their environment is so important. Okay. I'd move to adjourn if there's nothing else. See how I do.